Thank you all for joining us today, lending us your time, knowledge, experience. And I'm just going to quickly frame our conversation before I've let all of you finally speak. So the discussion and the panel is called From Secondhand to Upcycling, What's Really Going to Reduce Fashion's Footprint. So I would like to start with a few initial questions for each of you so we get to know you a little bit better, and then opening it up more into a group discussion. And always feel free and encouraged to comment on each other's statements. So starting with you, Anna. Can you tell us a little bit about your career, what you have learned from different materials as well as production cycles when it comes also to the environment and water, ideally?
Okay, so thank you, first of all, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, actually, for second time for a Drip by Drip event. So about myself, my background is chemical engineering, and I was actually living and working in Germany before I joined the textile industry in Portugal, which was in 2015. And I started to work, as you said before, in a company named Tintex. I was doing the managing of the sustainability department. At that time, it was strange for a factory to have a sustainability department because it was not that long ago, but the things were different at that time. And I was involved in doing the certification of the company and learning a little bit about the processes and how to change them in a better way for the environment. So one of the first topics that I was looking into was actually the water consumption, because Tintex is a dye house and a finishing house, so where the consumption of water is also high. So for the cotton, we have the farming and so on, but for the materials, the other materials, we also have the dyeing and finishing that are intensive process with intensive consumption of water. And then I was managing, together with the product development team, new materials and new developments to present to clients. And I felt at that time that we were doing a job that maybe clients were not ready for, because the fashion industry is used to cotton so much, is used to buy cheap materials without any, let's say, added value apart from the normal colors and designs that we see in our clothes. And after that, I joined for a while Smartex, which is a technological company that is doing a system to avoid defects during the knitting production, because defects are also a problem within the industry, because normally they go since the very beginning until the end of the production, and then when you realize that there was a defect, you have huge amounts of clothes that are going to landfills without even being used, and this is also a waste of water in the end, and other things. And then for a while I was also at CITEV, which is the Technological Center for Textiles and Clothing Industries in Portugal, and since January I joined RDD. And now at RDD, this company was born to work only with alternative materials. So I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that you maybe will ask afterwards something more. But
You can say what alternative materials.
Okay. Okay, so we decided to stay a little bit apart from the conventional materials that we are using in production, like cotton, polyester, viscose, lyocell, and so on. And we started to focus on fibers like hemp, pineapple, and other kinds of fibers like chemical recycled fibers. Nowadays there are a lot of startups also partnering with bigger companies to produce fibers from agri-waste or other kinds of sources of cellulose that can be used to produce fibers. And we use this kind of materials, as well as we implement different kinds of dyeing processes, like bacterial dyeing. So we have inside of our factory of our dye house a fermenter where we do a process of fermentation compared to the fermentation that we use to produce beer. And then the bacteria that grows in this process is programmed to produce a pigment in a specific color, and then we dye with this color instead of using the normal dye stuffs. This process is happening in 1.5 hours, more or less, with lower temperatures than the conventional process of dyeing. So the savings in water, energy, chemicals, and so on are huge. This is something that we are still, let's say, trying to scale up, because it's not as easy as the normal conventional process. But yeah, we work with these kind of materials and processes.
Okay, that's amazing. Mike works too. So what responsibilities do you see with producers? I mean, you mentioned a few tools and materials, but how do you, what's your experience with pushing or suggesting these kind of ideas to the industry partners?
Yeah, well, we work with our customers, let's say, in two different ways. So we propose ourselves what we develop, and this is the most important way of pushing, is showing that it's possible to do things and beautiful things in other ways. For me, this is the best, because when we talk to brands, so if you talk with the people that is in charge of sustainable development, is different that you when you speak with a buyer, because the buyer needs to develop and to deliver products to the brand to put in the stores and to have the normal business, to keep the business going, right? And if these people don't see that it's possible to do in a different way with some kind of security, they will say immediately no, because we need to keep our business running, and we are not in a position to wait to see if this works or if it doesn't work or whatever. So I guess the best way of pushing, and we do this every day. Of course, it's more difficult when you work with brands that were born 20 years, 50 years ago, that have the business based on something that it's not sustainable at all. But we also work with brands that are coming now to the market, so smaller brands normally, that already started the business based on this sustainable development, and there it's easy. We don't need to convince them, we just need to show what we do. So.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for these insights. There were definitely a few words I didn't know, or I just came across and don't know how to define. But we're going to get into some more of those buzzwords or technical, metrical terms. But you gave a good segue to introduce Lenia, because there are also companies with different business models that already have things like that in mind. So I would like to ask you to also tell us a little bit about your career path, and also, from what I know, you have the experience from e-commerce to re-commerce. So maybe that's also a little thing maybe you can explain to us.
So I never set out to have a career in fashion. I just knew that I wanted to work in an industry that I also understand as a consumer. So when I then started in consulting and there were fashion projects, I realized how fun and colorful this industry is. So I was happy to be put on those projects. We're asking for more of those projects. And then it was time, after a while, to work in the industry, work at an actual fashion retailer. So I joined Zalando, and I thought I was really at the peak of my career, working at one of the best and biggest e-commerce, fashion e-commerce players in Europe. That's when I also realized that this industry that's so fun and colorful is also so harmful, behind the scene. So harmful to the environment, to people, and that's why I'm so grateful to be able to apply my expertise in e-commerce now in the re-commerce fashion industry. What I learned is that retail is detail. That's what I love this industry for. There's so many complex problems to solve. But I also learned, and this was really the the moment when things changed for me at Zalando is to understand why there are trends. Yeah, there are trends because brands need you to buy new stuff. Yeah, and they sped up the cycle of trends more and more to make you buy more and more. That's when their revenues grew. Yeah, so this is why also my personal behavior I changed now. When I buy something new, I reflect, do I like it because a brand tells me this is what I should like, or do I like it because I actually like it, it fits my style?
Okay, that's interesting, and I think we can relate to it. And we see how much, products are like pushed to us. As I said, I don't know all the terms, so maybe you could refresh my memory about like the definition of like what's e-commerce or the circular economy is, I think, a similar term to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I divide it into 3 different economies. So there's the linear economy, which is what brands love. They make you buy goods that you throw away and buy again, throw away. So that's obviously very harmful to the environment. And then there's the recycling economy, and that's when you try and take away a piece of clothing and you try and make something new out of it. The problem is that only 1% of items that get discarded are actually being recycled into something new, though. Yeah, and it also consumes a lot of resources because you have to use chemicals, you have to emit a lot of CO2 to take these fibers apart because oftentimes they are mixed fibers. So it's still not ideal, but I hope that this industry is going to find a way around it because I think there's some great products coming out of this. Yeah, sneakers made out of ocean plastic, so really cool stuff. The circular economy is really the least harmful to the environment. Yeah, so that's when you try to keep items as much in the loop, as long in the loop as possible by reusing it, repairing it, lending it, and shopping it on secondhand.
Mm-hmm. Perfect segue again. Thank you for these comments on my question. Because Simone, you have a brand called SICA Upcycling Design. And I would love to ask you about the inception of your brand and why you went the upcycling route. And many amazing products come out of it, as we heard. And I know you also got some. So please tell us.
In the upcycling, yeah.
Like the inception of your brand and why you went the upcycling route.
Yeah. Hello. I think upcycling for me was always very natural, something I started working with upcycled materials in 2006. There was not such a word. It was I'm from Brazil. I started working with secondhand materials. I used to love buy secondhand clothes, coming from the Red Cross, to Brazil, from Europe, to find some nice different styles. And the kind of material I started to work with. And then I immediately jumped to using end rolls and discarded fabrics from the textile industry in south of Brazil. There's a big industry. We have a big internal industry. And I was using these materials because they're really fun. You can get in small quantities and you can do a lot of different colors and you can express your creativity with it. And I worked this for many years. I didn't really know it was I didn't know really how to brand this until I came here to Berlin. And I connect with a lot of designers that were branding is at upcycling. And I was like, okay, this is what I do. And it was very interesting. So this was my way then, and this was 2012. And I wanted to kind of explore how to scale upcycling because we were doing a lot of small pieces and you really have to care because the quantities are small. And so that led me to Bangladesh, where I work now since 10 years. And there I went to meet a social business that works with post-industrial waste, the leftover fabrics from the fashion industry. And they were doing very simple rugs. And something I knew also from Brazil, and I think a lot of people can relate from these rag rugs made of textile waste. But that I really see a community that was lift up, especially women, having local work, able to stay in their communities and have sustainable job and have also the crafts and their handcrafts like preserved and developed. So this is what I do now. It's really to develop together with them the technique to make bags and home accessories that are stable, that can last long, and that have like a story behind, and to let the conversation flow.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question, because you said now in 2006 you started like working in upcycling. It wasn't a term back then. Now it is one of the terms that is like more used or known, and I would like to know what's your experience like. What was the development of like this upcycling scene? Is there a scene now? And do you like it? What are the chances, challenges, like anything around those things?
I think it's very exciting because when we look in the production, like, now also zero waste, so other solutions are coming up. But when I started doing fashion, like we could look at like 15 to 20% of the fabrics on the production is waste. So that means we need this amount of percent of designers that are working out that waste or like trying to solve that. So it's very exciting, like to see that we're reviving something we always knew. I'm also working in the field of cultural sustainability, and when I do this development with the crafts people, the crafts community in Bangladesh, it's not saying that I'm doing something new. It's not something new. It's something we always did. It's something I did, like I said, like we always saw this rag rugs. It's something we always know how to care about our materials, how to make it last. It's just something new that fast fashion, like in the last 20, 30 years, we started to speed up and have a different behavior. And so I think it's very exciting that we're being creative again, and we're using this to think about how we use our materials, like to express our creativity and to share solutions. Yeah.
Interesting. I do agree. One more question to you, because of the short documentary you shot in Bangladesh called Once There Were Rivers. Since we are talking a lot about water, I also wanted to ask you, why did you choose that topic, and also what did you see being on the ground when it comes to water and the river? It's called Once There Were Rivers on YouTube. You can check it all out.
Okay, the documentary came 2 years ago when we applied for a project with Gotha Institute Bangladesh, also with an upcycling designer from Dhaka, Mahena Chaudhary, like a friend of mine, and she was like, I want to do this project, let's do it. And the idea was to also spot the different regions of Bangladesh, and we chose the topic of water because it's like Bangladesh has like more than 200 rivers, and it's this delta place like full of water, and in the last decades it got very impacted by it, and we wanted to do a research or like to talk to the craftspeople, especially Jamdani weavers, what's their influence together, like what's their relation with the topic of water, and also to reflect on how these communities and how they see their interrelation with material and crafts and the environment. It's not something separate, and it's very beautiful to see. Like it's a 10 minutes documentary where he really speaks about how he dyes the fabrics in the water and how the wind helps it, and how this craftsmanship got passed through generations, and how they used to have the river as part of their daily life. And now I think, as we know, the thing with water is not only the consumption. From what I know, it's also how you have the ETP process, to treat the water, and that's something very expensive in the production. And as much as the fashion industry pushes the prices in Bangladesh, that also it's about as I know, it's 20% of the factories in Bangladesh are not able to run this ETP, so they just throw the dirty water back in the sea in the rivers. ETP is like a water treatment that you must have in your factories, and they usually have this because you have to have these regulations, but they just can't afford to run it. So this is what we wanted to bring in the documentary and talk about the craftsmanship in Bangladesh and how it used to be like a hotspot for craftsmanship, and then what it became now. We don't really even know, like we don't even know this back history or the craftspeople that are.
Yeah, it's an amazing documentary. I watched it. Yeah, you were talking a lot to the people there and also to like about the craftsmanship and like the heritage that lies behind there. So me also wanting to open this up now into more of a group conversation besides the pointy questions I was asking. One of the things when we talk in sustainability, it gets technical, buzzword driven, and so it was like refreshing to see that you also started the documentary talking to the people before even showing the polluted water. And so we have like so many different touch points when we work in our lives, from like customers, colleagues, clients, and ourselves as consumers. But then there are also the people in the producing countries making our clothes. And so we got, on the one hand, the people who suffer from the textile industry, the ones causing it, and the ones that are a little bit oblivious about it and just like do not pay attention. So I would like to ask all of you, how much of a conversation is water, like in the conversations you have internally and also like externally with the customers? What are they aware of? Anyone can take it away.
Actually, not that much, unfortunately. So I started reading up and learning more about fashion and sustainability when I worked at Zalando. And I read all the other big fashion companies' sustainability reports, and water was rarely a topic, actually. They always talked about CO2, yeah, and sometimes about working conditions, because there's now this Lieferkettengesetz. But it's very underserved, and that's why I was so excited to hear about you guys. So we, for example, we show what CO2 can you avoid if you buy an item secondhand from momox Fashion instead of buying a new item. And we would love to show the same for water, but there's just no research. I mean, sometimes there is research on maybe how much water a t-shirt consumes, a pair of jeans, but that's it. There's no broad research that covers all the categories.
Yes, I guess that indeed is a buzzword-driven business. So, it's a fact. What we feel is that when we are talking to brands, sometimes brands want the storytelling of the product without even thinking about the story making behind, you know. So it's important, and you see more and more that brands are trying to say something to consumers about sustainability approaches that they have in materials, in sources of materials, and these kind of things. But specifically like water or chemicals or like specific key performance indicators in some points, you don't see. But on the other hand, it's the same like that what happened with the food, I guess. So when like our parents or our grandparents were not paying much attention of what they were eating before, like many years ago. And now when we go to the supermarket, we look into this long list of ingredients that our food has. And I guess this is a way, so is a path that we are crossing, and we will get at a certain point that the products and the consumers will have a little bit more, or will pay a little bit more attention on what they are consuming in the clothing, as well as they look into other things like food. Or so.
How much is water a topic in the upcycling world, would you say?
Well, in the process that we make, we don't use any water, and
so by definition.
Sorry.
No, I said by definition you are not basically producing or any water waste.
No, we don't. I mean, there's the water consumption in the material when we take it. But then we really work the colors out the way they come, and also the energy, the consumption is very low, and it's amazing.
Yeah, we had a little discussion before because we saw the question coming up about water, and we thought which one of our business models is actually more sustainable when it comes to water. And we think it's equal actually, because the only water we use is in the washrooms for our employees. But that's it. So the impact that we have on water is rather positive because no new goods have to be produced.
Yeah, and I think also in the recycling process also, I think it's so incredible because the recycling process is now for textile waste. It's like you need to transport somewhere and then put energy and then redo like all the system again. And this is just extracting the material and just reusing. So it's a pretty good
greenwashing. Yeah.
Okay, that's already good. We have a tie when it comes to secondhand and upcycling. Staying on the topic of metrics a little bit and also water. You mentioned already CO2 is very popular, and when we talk about water and sustainability, I can't help to be a little bit jealous of the fame and clout CO2 has. You find it everywhere, rightfully so, but when you book a flight, you can see how much CO2 emissions you have or how to lower it. Also, when you deliver or send a package and all of that. So we are trying to make water as popular as a topic with events like this. So I want to ask all of you what you think is needed to make water more of a conversation internally and also in the awareness of consumers.
I guess people in general don't think about clothing as a water consumption industry. That's the main point. So if you don't know, how can you be worried about it? So for me, the lack of knowledge on the materials that you use, and probably is not, I'm talking about textiles because I work in textiles, but probably this happens with other industries as well. But I think people really don't know how our clothes are made. So since the beginning. So for me, the information that we should give to people, like since we are kids in school, should be focused on things that really like exist much more than the theoretical stuff that we learned until college that maybe we will never apply in anything. So education for me is the first point.
And then regulation as well. So it's already mandatory to report on your CO2 if you're a certain size of a company, but now new regulation is coming in. So in a couple of years, it will be mandatory for businesses our size to look at all ESG topics. So what impact does your business have on the topics of environment, social, and governance? And there, water is actually a big factor, and the companies need to look at the impact they have, and then if the impact is materially negative, then they need to report numbers and set goals and work on strategies. And that's being audited then by financial auditors in the future. So I think it needs this regulation for the topic to get the attention.
Mm-hmm.
And you repeat the question?
How do we make water popular in terms of like CO2 as something that's like in the public consensus?
The water popular.
Yeah, in terms of that water is like that there's a water issue or crisis, let's say, in the world. If you have anything to add from...
Besides education.
Yeah, education, regulations were like two things. Yeah.
I don't know if I have one.
I think,
specific one.
I think I'm also with these two. So we're trying to do some educational stuff. Regulations is somewhere else. I don't know. We're gonna actually, I'm gonna speak about that a little bit later. This is like just a little cliffhanger about collaboration. And so moving on to technology. You, Lenia, made an interesting statement earlier when we spoke that sustainability is getting very technical right now. And would you have anything to add to that statement? And also, I'm very interested what you, Anna, would think about it, since you also have like the very technical background.
Yeah, so it's becoming so technical that I, as the person who started the sustainability program at momox as a passion project, it's getting too technical for me. So that's why we have to hire experts, to coach us through the process of doing the analysis, of writing reports. And that's a very tedious process. And also, in fact, because we're such a sustainable business in its core already, it also distracts our attention away from improving on our CO2 emissions. But I think there just needs to be broad legislation and reporting requirements so that other businesses who are not sustainable also have to deal with the topic. But it's becoming increasingly difficult.
Yeah. Do you, like the statement was sustainability is getting very technical right now. Was it always as technical? Is it getting more technical? What is your point of view?
No, I don't think that it was always too technical, because I think that the conversation started very simple, actually, in a very simple way, actually, because the first statement was fashion industry is the second most polluting industry in the world. So, okay, this is very easy to understand in these few words. But then you think, and what does this mean? And you start looking into the fashion industry, and then you can divide fashion industry in dozens of topics. And water is one of them, but there are a few more, like much more, that you need to look into it. And then after you take, or you are aware about these topics, then you go into the topics, and you see that even into the topic of water, for example, you have the water that you use to produce a fiber, so the plant, the water that you use to produce the color in this, the water that you use to produce the chemicals that you use in these dyeing processes. So it is indeed too technical, and if you are not going too technical, you will never solve the problem. That's my perspective. And that's why, for example, at RDD, we are a textile company inside of the biggest textile group in Portugal. And actually in our company, we don't have any textile engineer or textile background person. We just have biotechnology people, chemistry people, material science people, that work every day in these kind of processes that were never looked into a very technical way, because you just have a textile engineer saying to people in production, do like that, and nobody was even asking why you do like that. You just did because someone told you to. So yes, it is too technical, but in my perspective, this is the way to solve it.
Okay, we got to stay technical.
Yeah, I don't think in my case there's so much focus on the technical part. Is more into the how to get the business sustainable, and really how to work on the ground with the people, and and to show what we're doing, and more also there's more the cases to be more to explain what's the impact and what's making to every person life-changing differences. Yeah,
it's definitely helpful to have a business model that's at the core already thinking of these things, so you can be maybe a little bit less technical or less worried about it because you already do the right things. Or
and I think it will wait a bit until hit us, because with the new legislation and what's
I see. And also, to stay a little bit technical, so with measuring impact, and how do you see that? Is there something to learn from measuring other things that we can kind of extract to, like the water issues when it comes to producing? And I mean, using secondhand or upcycling is definitely already a way of doing less new stuff. So would you have anything to tell me with this weird open-ended question that's not really pointy? How to measure impact, basically, and is there an advice for people who would produce to do less?
Well, I think it's very important, and we do, for example, in our company, we have a person that is dedicated to life cycle assessment of materials, and this is a very complex and technical aspect, actually, but it gives you results, even if it's not so let's say, certain or so it gives you an idea of if this material is better than the other, and if you should use it or not in evaluating different points, as I said before, like the water consumption, but also energy and these kind of things. And then it gives some help for you to make better choices, hopefully. And we use these tools as well to try to pass this message to people that work with us, not only customers but also partners that we partner every day to do different things. And yes, this legislation is coming, so for Europe is already a reality, and many companies. So if it's not in 2025 or 2026, it's after, but it's coming. So we'll have to start reporting on their own way of working. And for me, if you are only reporting like general numbers, and if you don't go into like the very specific topics that you work to make a simple T-shirt, we will never get there, because it's a very wide range of numbers that you look into that and you say to people, okay, these uses, or for to produce these T-shirts you need I don't know, hundreds of kilowatts of energy. Yes, but what does it mean to you as a consumer that is going every day to your home and buying every day food and clothes? Okay, that's it. So I think we should go a little bit more into detail in this kind of reporting, and hopefully this digital product passport that the European Commission wants to implement in products will help companies doing that. But for me, at this first time, we will see many things that are not really relevant to this change, So it's a path, I guess. So.
Yeah. So moving on to a less technical topic, but the power of collaboration, because I was teasing a little bit on it, because we had this roundtable earlier this year with Lisa Jaspers from Folk Days, and she did a petition, like the Lieferkettengesetz, that's supply chain law, and we asked her, or Marie asked her, she was hosting it, why or how did it become so successful? She had hundreds of thousands of people signing it, and it was really a topic. And she mentioned two main things. One, there were many women involved, and the second one, there were many different brands and organizations and individuals who helped to push this project. So I want to ask all of you, what do you see in collaboration? I have a few more words on that, but I know we're already short on time, so I'll let you all speak.
Yeah, so the good thing about this legislation is that it forces a lot of big players to also think about sustainability and think about how they can reduce their impact. So for example, About You realized that they have to increase the amount of products that they sell, which are part of a circular economy. And that's when they approached us and asked us if we wanted to sell our goods on About You. And that's what we're doing now. So we're listing almost 1 million products on About You. We're getting many hundreds of orders through them. And obviously it amplifies the impact that we can have, because they have a totally different branding budget than us. They have a completely different customer set to us that we probably wouldn't reach. And it's great to be able to get those customers there and convert them to secondhand fashion lovers.
So basically suggesting them another alternative on their platform. Mm-hmm. Anna, your company is a joint venture as such, I read, so collaboration is a thing.
Yes, well, when RDD was born, it was a single company, so just one shareholder. At the moment is a joint venture between Valerius Group and Pangaia, the brand, a material science brand. So, and we work a lot in collaboration with them, especially with the R&D team. So they do this kind of scouting of new materials, new technologies, etc. And then we do the evaluation in terms of technical application and scaling up. And normally the the common the topic between us is we want to solve problems, and sometimes when we have meetings with the material developers or with a fiber producer or a technology producer, we the question that we ask is, well, okay, but we are doing this for which is the reason behind you want to develop this new fiber or you want to develop this technology? And normally the environmental side is the focus at the moment. Even if we also look into some projects like about people and getting better conditions to people working in other countries and so on, the focus on materials is much more on the environmental side. But yes, since we joined together, this was much more successful because we have the power of a brand that can reach the consumer and can it's a leverage for us actually having them in the team, because we can quickly go to market with like few products just for people to see, okay, you can use these beautiful clothes that are made out of banana waste leaves that would be just in the landfill or wherever if they were not used to produce fiber, instead of using, for example, cotton, or instead of using polyester, which is a synthetic fiber. So yes, for us, collaboration is the word for sure, because we never do anything alone. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a very collaboration is super interesting. It's something I really hold on, like since the beginning I held on it. When I first did the first collection back in 2013, it was this potential, or like I wasn't involved with a CSR consultant, and like, okay, there's maybe this, we can work with this and this player, like you can make volumes and things like this. And I really didn't want to go that path because it was very new for me, and I didn't want to repeat something that, like a system that we're already doing. So I went the hard path, which was like going on my own expenses like every year, and then living there, living in the factory, living in Bangladesh, really like immersing myself and like learning from the experience and from the people there to do something together and not come with an outside this, or like coming with a solution and imposing a solution on another place. Like really like try to do as much as decolonial as it can be. It's been a very, very good journey, like not easy, but very good journey. And I think now we're at a stage also that I developed the product more, and I got this experience with what is a good quantity and capacity that we can do, and how can it fit better. That now we're starting like with small collaborations. We did this with cultural intellectual property initiative last year, which is to do like a cultural sustainability policy to really see like to learn from this 10 years experience, like how do we work and how do we go and how do we then learn from this experience to replicate in different places. So now we're starting collaboration in Portugal as well with like weavers, and also because there's also like a spot where the material is there and the craftsmanship is super important also for the country. And my dream is also to go to Brazil, where like I'm speaking with a few people now, and I will be super excited to do more collaborations from now on. But yeah.
Yeah, amazing. That's also what we try to do. So make sure to speak to someone you don't know tonight. I'm closing with a final question. And that is, like, I want to look into the future with all of you from the current standpoint. And we see two huge trends today. One is being sustainability, and that's why a lot of people are here today. But then there's also ultra-fast fashion, while we thought it was already the fastest. So how do you think is the future going to look like, and how do we land more on the sustainability side of things?
I think the sustainability trend is going to persist, yeah, and it's going to give us a lot of additional tailwind in the future years. It's just not going to go away. Inflation is helping as well to push people into trying to buy cheaper things. Yeah, but unfortunately, also people buy a lot of fast fashion. Yeah, and this is what's being branded as the value action gap. So you have values, you value sustainability, but then you don't act on it. So people love to buy something sustainable, but they don't want to pay a higher price for it, or not a much higher price. And this is actually why I think this Gen Z is actually the most hypocritical generation of all of them, because yes, there's Friday for Future on the one hand, but then they're also the generation that shops the most fast fashion. So it's very dangerous. But I don't look at Shein and the likes as the evil guys, and just being happy that I don't have to work for them. But I look at them and try to see what I can learn from them. Yeah, so they are producing ultra fast, and that's something that momox can do as well. We have a very short lead time, so if we identify a trend, and if we are able to identify that trend when we buy secondhand from customers, then our lead time is a week. Yeah, it takes a week for customers to send it in, we check it, and then we stock it. So I try to learn from them and see how I can adapt what they are great at to make our business greater.
Smart. A smart way to do it. How do you think, Simone?
About sustainability in the future.
Yeah, this future between those two trends. So how do we going to land more on the sustainability side while there's also the crazy ultra fast fashion vibe or wave?
I think we are I think we're in a moment where rapid changes will happen, because we are in climate change. Like, we can see like flows everywhere. Like, we see what's happening. Like, I think it's a big potential for people to wake up and to change our habits, to change the way we live, and be resilient, to really take the chance to do the things, even though it's not easy to change. Like, we'll be forced to do it, and to be curious, to expect like new, different ways of doing things as we did in the past. Like, we're like in a great potential to like changing how we live here on the planet, is what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that we do not know exactly how the future will be. The thing that we know is that won't be as it was until now, and that's for sure, because otherwise, first, we wouldn't be here discussing this topic in Berlin. So in a weekday, and then also because we see, and I see there in Portugal, one of our factories is a recycling center. Is the most recent one is a recycling center, and is the one that has the most of work that we have now is related to recycled materials. So they are producing much more recycled materials than we are using, let's say, the normal ones. So and the factory is there since only 2017, and even fast fashion brands that we didn't used to work with because we didn't have price to work with them. Our price was too high. Now are coming to see the factory, to see what they can do, and so on. This is a sign that something is changing. So we don't know how, but it's changing.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for the outlook. So hopefully we're going to end up more on the sustainable side of things. I would like to close out with something I learned researching all of you in a podcast you were on, Simone, with Fashion Revolution, also known for the hashtag Who Made My Clothes. And you mentioned a quote I didn't know before by Vivienne Westwood. Do you remember which one it was? I wrote it down. Do you?
Yeah, make it. No, I don't remember. Now that I do.
Yeah, now you're on the spot. No, it's buy less, choose well, make it last. And I think that's a great sentiment for what we have been talking about. And yeah, so I want to thank you all for listening so patiently. I had so many questions that there's no Q&A, so unfortunately no questions from your side, but you can, but you can ask, I guess, each of you also after the talk. And yeah, I want to thank everyone for coming. I also want to thank, obviously, all of you for like lending your time, sharing your knowledge and experience. It was very insightful, and yeah, it was fun also. Yeah, thank you to Drip by Drip for making this happen. And also to Armin, a speedy recovery so we can do the 2.1 edition of the Fluid Fashion Experience. Shoutouts to the Platte, shoutouts to Esquema Films, Tintex Textiles, Tearful Textiles, and Hata, who made the things happen on the screens. There's also 2 VR pieces you can see in the back. And Engagement Global, BMZ, Landstelle für Entwicklungszusammenarbeit Berlin, Preußenquelle, We Drinks, and Venue Catering, which might be still out there in the back. I'm not sure. No more catering, but more drinks at the bar. So yeah, thank you all very much. Also to the camera crew, sorry. Otto, Nono, Mihai on the sound, Leo on the camera, and once again to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.